compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Deputy Clerk Pamela Dimick announced that this is a special meeting with the meeting notice published in the Hunterdon County Democrat issue of December 6, 2018. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Times of Trenton, Star Ledger, Courier News, posted on the bulletin board, and filed in the clerk's office on December 11, 2018.
Thank you. So we're here to have a special budget discussion, a preview to 2019. The CFO gave us a package. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to review it. But we're also, a slight change we made to the agenda at 6:10, or at 7:10, excuse me. We're going to break into an executive session to get an update on some litigation and the status of that litigation. Okay, Margaret, why don't you walk us through the budget package?
All right, well, this is just going to be the first informal meeting because at this point, we really can't do anything since we have somebody newly elected. We can't make any decisions or anything, but just wanted to start giving you background information. What I sent out there was the last 3 years of each individual budget for each individual department. That's just more or less an FYI. How this is going to work is at this meeting, we're just going to go over kind of like a direction of where you want to go. I got a couple little questions I want to, so I know how to do little things like planning and zoning and the I knew IT person and where we're going with the QPA person. I've sent out requests to all the departments to ask them what they would like for their budgets. If they are going to increase their budget with anything significant, I've asked them to include justifications for that. For the January meeting, hopefully we can meet before the next scheduled January meeting, come in an hour early again. Hopefully I will have what everybody has requested. At that point, we could start looking at things. By February, and possibly saying if you want anybody coming in for the February meeting, have people come in and hopefully finalize everything at the March meeting and introduce in April. Again, the state's going to try to do the new system. I'm anticipating that's going to be a nightmare again. So I need to get as much information up front and as soon as possible. But they are pushing that everybody gets everything. I think you have to introduce it's late March or your next available meeting, which would be our April meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And on top of that is that we don't get the state aid figures till sometime in March anyway. So even if we were ready to go for the March meeting, I wouldn't have the state aid figures. I could guess at them, but I would rather it would be right the first time.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's a reasonable timeline.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give you little highlights of where we are right now. Last year's budget, we still have, after the one item encumbered for the assessor, we still have $140,000 left in the account, which is actually pretty good. That's better than we've been doing in the past few years. Past couple of years, we've always had maybe 110, 120,000. So we do have 140. That will lapse into surplus at the end of this year. Okay.
That's sort of everything being on track
On track.
for the remainder of the year.
Yeah. On top of that, all our anticipated revenues that we did, your fees and permits, your court, your interest, all the shared services, we've brought in more money than we anticipated. So everything is, as far as revenue, is in good shape.
Okay.
We cleared out our delinquent taxes, so we're covered there too. So we're not in the hole for anything.
Good.
We should be in good shape. On the downside, we did actually we budgeted more surplus this year than we have done in previous years. I don't see that being a problem. I can't give you a prediction of where we're going to be with surplus. And, that's going to have to wait till the end of January when I finish all the annual financial statements. Okay. But all in all, we're getting in better shape. I'd like to see our capital account built up. That's what I've been trying to do for the last few years. I can't stress that enough. We got to start doing some long-term planning. Whether it's roads, whether it's equipment, things like that, we've got to get the capital account back on track.
Well, where is it now and where would you like it to be?
Well, we have $40,000 in capital improvement fund and we have $40,000 in capital surplus. That'll buy us a small piece of equipment. I'd like to see us thinking long-term, like just say something like the salt barn, I don't want us to go out and borrowing money again, because you saw how expensive it was to do permanent financing. That's not something you want to do on a regular basis. And I'm not crazy about doing bands either. I'd like to get us to a point where we're almost pay-as-you-go. My other municipality, they put aside, I mean, we're not in that position to do this, but they put aside $500,000 every year into the capital fund from the operating budget, and they just decide where they're going to divvy it up. It's a reserve for road improvements, reserve for ambulance, reserve for DPW equipment, building, you know.
Chris, please come up. We're inviting Chris Sobieski up to the dais as is custom. Chris, why don't you sit over in Pete's spot, because Pete's not here.
You'll be Pete for tonight. That's cool. Although you have a nameplate
Yeah, it's in the other room.
next time.
All right, it's all good. Thanks, guys.
I have it ordered. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I do have it on my desk. I didn't know it was gonna be.
Well, at the break, why don't you bring it up at the regular meeting?
I do apologize. I had traffic on the way over here. It wasn't a good time, but I arrived. So.
Okay, great, thanks.
So that's something I'd like to think about doing, like for the salt barn. You know, if we could start putting away $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year in a reserve, it goes into the capital fund, it just sits there. So 2, 3, 4 years down the road, when you really have to get this thing replaced, you pretty much have most of it already paid for and ready to go. I mean, we do that with, we have to help purchase an ambulance or a fire truck with Alexandria and Milford and Holland all have to purchase them together. We put away $15,000 a year towards an ambulance or a fire truck. And every 4 or 5 years, when they need us to contribute, we have the money ready to go. We don't have to raise it in all one big lump sum. That's something I'd like to, you know, but it's long-term planning.
So it's in the general fund? and then
Well, you raise it in the general fund, as soon as the budget's adopted, I move it to the capital fund.
Okay.
And it just sits into a reserve until we're ready to pass an ordinance. So like I said, the ambulance fund, they put in $15,000 each year. And when they need a new ambulance or a fire truck or whatever, they let us know. And by that point, we've got $75,000, $100,000 in there. We figure out what our share is and we pass an ordinance for that. But it's already there. You don't have to worry about raising $75,000 or $100,000 in 1 year.
And under that strategy, the impact is immediate to the budget that year when you raise it. So if you raise $50,000 and move it, it was a $50,000 item in the budget.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
And
But
then
it's
when you-
rather than having to raise $200,000 in the budget, you know.
But then when you use it from capital, does it then get amortized over the life of the asset?
No,
No. Okay, so it's then an equal
yes.
usage. Okay.
So that's someplace that I'd like to get going here, because it seems like we're always just trying to play catch-up with our capital account. With that said, I'll give you what Jason handed out as items that we could possibly need, either this year or in the near future.
While we're hitting that,
Estimations.
Pam, does Chris have a package also, or at least a budget sheet? If not, why don't you take Pete's?
I can get it.
No, there's one at the, they're up front.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
get
They're on
it.
the table. Make sure that-
Do I pass these down to her?
Yeah,
Yeah, just,
just get the extras there.
And there is one in this folder that I didn't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well then I guess what I want to do is for this time is to just try to get a few points cleared up, so I know how to go forward with putting together a better budget presentation for you for the next time.
well, before you do, can you just walk through, so Jason provided these
Jason provided this,
capital
yes.
items. So these would come out of whatever you're suggesting, if we had enough money for all this.
You're gonna have to budget something in the operating budget to move over to the capital budget. In all honesty, you know, when I first came here, you had very little surplus. And I knew that you were gonna eventually need to go out to get permanent financing, and you really need to have a strong surplus in your account for them to give you a favorable rate. We got to where I wanted to be at this point. So at this point, if we want to use a little bit of the surplus to put towards more capital projects, I think we can do that. You know, I don't like using surplus to balance a budget, because once you do it, it's a year after year after year thing, and that's a problem. If we're just gonna say, hey, we wanna use 250,000 of surplus this year to put towards, and get a big jump on capital projects, we can do it and then back it off the following year. I just don't wanna suddenly start putting in an extra $75,000 in surplus just to keep the budget flat or balanced, because that's a permanent thing we have to do.
So based on where we are, what do you think is a comfortable surplus number we could do something like that?
The person who I learned under was always saying 25% of your budget, which is around 700,000 to keep in.
In surplus?
Keep in surplus.
So where are we now?
Right at this moment, we're a little over 8.
Okay.
I mean, I have to see how the end of the year is. I don't foresee us dropping down below 7.
Okay.
Um,
So why don't we all just kind of consider there's about $100,000 that we possibly
Well, plus
could-
there'll be surplus rolling out of this year that'll go on top of that 8.
Right.
Yeah, well, you basically what you have is, we budgeted, I think it was 280 or 260 for this year's budget. And we normally budget 175, so we did jump it up, basically, so we wanted to cover the cost of doing the permanent financing, and we wanted to throw in the extra money to something with capital. We put in extra money there. So you look at it right away, you have 800,000. Well, now you budgeted 280. You got to subtract that off the 800,000. We know I'm going to put back 140, so that goes back up again. And then it depends on how the revenues came in. Like I said, right now we're good. We met all our goals on the revenues. How far beyond that, and also with the taxes. That's the one. That's the big nut, and I couldn't tell you what that's going to be until we finish out the year.
Okay. So just as a planning number, I have in my head about 100,000 plus or minus.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I wish I could give you more accurate figure, but yeah, right now.
Hey, Margaret, is this thing from Jason rank ordered, or is this just,
He didn't
6,
tell me
no
if it was rank
prioritization.
ordered. I'm gonna
I've seen this
guess
list
it probably
before.
was.
Okay, with the exception of repainting the building, which I concur, having been out there for the last recycling depot. It needs to be painted and cleaned up. We've got some chipping of that outer, concrete type surface they put on it. We saw that near the windows, so we don't need to discuss it now, but that's certainly something that
And the only
should be.
good thing about that is that there is a really old ordinance that's funded in the capital. It has about $16,000 in it for building upkeep improvements. So at least we got something. I have no idea what it's going to cost to paint, and he said he doesn't either.
I was thinking they'd paint it.
I'm actually not convinced it needs to be painted. It needs to be fixed, the chipping, the holes. But I think that stucco can be cleaned.
Could be, could be.
What I was thinking is we'll pick a day and all the township committee members will come out someday in the summer and I know what you use on it and we'll clean it.
Okay.
You get to go up the ladder.
I'll climb. Somebody else is holding them. Yeah, look, it needs to be cleaned up is the point. If it can be cleaned, I
You're
think
right.
that's great. If not, then we have to go to the next level.
I agree.
But I'm certainly willing to come out on a weekend if that's what it takes.
I actually was
So,
only half joking.
rather than getting
because-
somebody to come in and like professionally paint, I don't think it's that big of an effort, quite frankly.
Well, I've learned you have to clean before you paint, so it seems to me that.
Correct.
We'll see what it looks like after we clean
Correct.
it and then decide.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So we good with capital
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
I mean, if you do want Jason to come in and explain, give me some notice to.
By the way, Margaret, I know we have this fund that's in our recycling committee, this reserve.
Reserve,
And-
or you mean the Clean Communities grant?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I forget what's left in that 30,000, something
We're
like
probably
that.
around that, yes.
I'd like to see whether any of that could be utilized towards, for example, the power angle room for the backhoe. We ought to look into that, because we did use some of that toward the pickup truck.
Actually, we didn't, because it has to be, we actually just used the capital for that. We haven't used anything for the pickup truck because Jason doesn't feel that we're gonna be using it for recycling, and we have to prove that we used it, that it's gonna be used for recycling.
I thought we used about $8,000. I saw an item for that. Did we ultimately decide not to?
I'll have to double check, I just don't remember doing that.
I think we did, but I
All right, I'll
can't
look.
swear, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure.
I recall because we needed a truck to take the styrofoam.
That's what I thought.
All right,
Can
well, I'll
we
double
justify
check,
it? Yeah.
I don't think I did, but I'll
use the truck for styrofoam and you've got coverage,
Okay,
whether you haul one piece or a whole load.
okay.
All right, so as long as we keep the styrofoam cup in the car, we're.
He's thinking like a tax lawyer now.
You're rubbing off on me. But I think that's how we were gonna cover it anyway, because we can go up to 25% of the total
25%
cost?
of your grant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 25% of the grant.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Couple of things that I wanted to clean up. I know last year we combined the planning board and the board of adjustment. I left them separate in my budget at the time because we had already started charging things from there. I'm going to start January 1st, I'm gonna combine planning and the board of adjustment. What my question is we're still leaving the zoning board piece separate. I think my concern is that we had one line item for zoning board and we put $1,000 in it and it was constantly being overspent.
Why are we gonna leave the zoning board separate? The zoning board of adjustment is gone.
Unless it's zoning officer, is there a
Well,
separate?
it's zoning
one?
officer,
Yeah.
but basically what I'm
Yeah.
saying is because, yeah, the zoning officer would be separate than the board of adjustment, correct? Or is it gonna be all
Yeah.
together?
Well, the zoning officer, we're paying her a salary as a zoning officer.
Okay.
She's also getting a salary as the administrator for the planning board.
Right.
The latter should go in the planning board. The zoning officer, I would have thought isn't that just an employee expense?
The zoning is, but I know that we had, last year or the year before, set aside a one line saying zoning officer miscellaneous expenses. And I wanted to know if we were still keeping that.
Well,
Or
look,
if everything was gonna be moved over just to the board of adjustment.
She's going to need to take classes. So invariably, there'll be expenses beyond her salary.
Okay, is that gonna stay in the, what I'm saying is, we're breaking apart we're putting board of adjustment and planning together in one lump sum. In the past, what it was, planning was here and it was zoning board of adjustment. So we're breaking out the board of adjustment over to putting it over to planning. But are we gonna leave a section for just zoning and is there gonna be charges against it?
Yeah, I
That's what
think
need
we
to know.
should, because there's also a backup zoning officer
Mm-hmm.
to fill in for either conflicts or if the zoning officer's unavailable. And then there's probably miscellaneous expenses.
Yeah, that's what I'm
incurred
asking
by
about the
zoning.
miscellaneous expenses, but that's a good point as far as the zoning officer, if we have to do something, that would come out of salary and wage, so
Yeah.
I'll need to budget a little bit more than whatever her salary
Yeah.
is, just in case.
Well, let's take a minute on this. We have Krista's salary as a zoning officer. We have whatever educational expenses she incurs. We have the backup zoning officer. There was one other thing with Krista. Salary, education, backup zoning officer. It'll come to me, but there was something else that's associated with her position, and I'm just drawing a blank at the minute.
Well, there might be miscellaneous expenses to run around, go look at things.
That's what I was
to
worried
do
about, because
survey-
right
site-
now we
site
really,
visits.
you had one line item for zoning officer
Oh.
expenses, and it's
Yeah.
very underfunded, and
Yeah.
because it was put in with the Board of Adjustment budget, if it went over, it wasn't the end of the world. Once
Right.
you pull away the Board of Adjustment budget,
Right.
that now it is a
Yeah.
problem. You gotta make sure you budget enough in there for that.
Okay, we're also, the thing that slipped my mind, which now re-entered my mind, is we are paying Joanna to be a sounding board for Krista until Krista gets sufficiently experienced that she doesn't need a sounding board. So we need to include money in the budget for Joanna. How much, I want to talk to Krista. It's not a huge number, but it's not insignificant. It's not a couple of $100. It's going to be more than that. I need to talk to Krista and find out what we should add. So how we want to deal with that, whether we want to make Krista her own section in the budget, maybe that makes the most sense. Have zoning officer have all 4 items as a separate section of the budget. Her salary, her education, whatever we pay to Joanna, and the miscellaneous.
I think that's
Oh, and the
the,
backup zoning officer.
So, yeah, so you'd have under zoning, salary, and wages, it would be Krista's salary plus any backup that zoning
Right.
officer, and then you'd have zoning operating expenses, and that's where you put the miscellaneous, the educational expenses, the, using Joanna
Yes,
for as a consultant, that's where you do it.
that's fine.
That's what I'm just saying is that I want to make sure that we budget enough in the zoning officer line, because in the past, we've underfunded.
Yep.
And, but because it was combined with Board of Adjustment, it wasn't critical. Now it's going to be, it's going to have to stand alone. It's going to have to be budgeted properly.
Right. And I think it's a good control to have it all in one place, and we could monitor it and
Yeah.
understand the true expenses. Good.
Okay. The next one, of course, because this one kind of threw me for a loop last year, is when you hired the IT person, because we didn't really have a place for them. I stuck them in administrative area.
Right.
I didn't know if you wanted them to stay in administration, or if they should have a standalone department.
What IT person?
You're Jessica Rose, the person who
Oh,
does that. because
she's
we
the
have to pay her-
administrator
Yeah,
for
we have to
the-
pay her.
For the website? you
Yes.
mean? Okay.
We didn't
all right.
really have a place for her.
Okay. Well, she's the administrator for the website committee.
Yes, but we didn't have something in the budget that
Okay.
fit that.
Well, we should have something in the budget for the website,
Mhm.
and she's the administrator. Now, the website committee probably over time will wind down, but there'll always be the need, I think, for Jessica, because she'll be managing the website.
Right now, I put it in the old administration line item, or, you know, that department. Can it stay there, or should I develop a whole new department?
I think we should have like a technology.
That's what I'm
department.
asking, is
Yeah.
that,
I think
should we
so,
have a
too.
Where we could
technology
put-
department
Yeah, we're
line
gonna
item?
need to upgrade technology. We're looking at this camera technology. We have,
The email I sent you about the 2,500, so that we can buy.
Yeah, that was my question, is that
Right.
gonna be in her?
It should go in the technology.
Okay.
is technology the right name? I mean, you know, in corporate America, you have information technology.
Yeah, that's what we
or-
usually call it,
Okay.
information
Yeah.
I was
technology.
thinking communications possibly, because I know I'm on the website committee, we were talking about a name change to just communications committee, because it kind of, the name's too long, number one, but it also would encompass more things, so maybe that might be a better way to name it.
Well, that's really what this is. It's not so much, you're right, it's actually more communications than
Yes.
technology.
Okay. So
That's
we'll-
really what it is.
communications
This is all
department.
about communicating with the residents.
Well, but that's the website, but I'm thinking broader in terms of an IT function. Even though we outsource things,
That's
we
true.
have various technology, alarm systems, video cameras, surveillance, all of that stuff would be under a technology.
Then call it
department.
technology and communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking about getting cameras for outside the building, maybe even for the lobby of the building. So that's probably
Okay.
the way to deal with it.
All right. And I said, when you have a standalone department, they have to be funded sufficiently, because if we run out of money before November,
Yeah.
it just sits, we can't do anything.
Well, that's okay, because with this, if we ran out of money in September or October, it may mean that we just have to push things for a month or two. It's unlikely to be critical,
Okay,
so I think that's okay.
all right.
And we'll just have to sit down with Allison and Jessica and figure out how much we need to put in the budget. We know we need 2,500. We know we'll need money for Jessica. I need to get a sense of whether her role is going to get broader and she'll put in more hours. But I'll talk to Allison and Jessica and ask them to put something together.
All right. I mean, at this point, you probably can't give me an idea on this, but I'm just looking for the direction of the overall budget, you know? Whether it's a flat tax levy, flat tax rate, where we, you know, what's your
Well,
ultimate goal?
Yeah, my ultimate goal is no tax increase.
Is that by tax rate or levy?
Whatever, when a resident opens their bill, their taxes didn't go up.
Well, no, their taxes may well go up because the county could raise
Well,
taxes, the schools could raise taxes. We have to
Yeah.
focus on just the municipal piece.
Yeah, well, from a municipal perspective, I'd like it to be flat or slightly lower if possible. That's my own prerogative.
I agree with that totally. I'd like to keep I mean, obviously, at some point, that's going to change, but we kept it flat last year, and actually
it
went
dropped
down a
it-
little
dropped
bit,
it last year.
and we're ahead on our surplus. But that's because we're really watching every dollar that's spent. And I'd like to set that same goal. I think we should set that goal and impose fiscal discipline. And when we get to the point where we say, okay, we have our house really in order, then we may have to look at something different. But I don't think we're there yet. I think there's still savings to be had, and I'd like to impose the fiscal discipline on us.
Okay, fair.
Are you considering any new positions, like the QPA, since we budgeted for that as an operating expense in my budget? Is that person, are you gonna consider doing it as a salaried position or as a consulting position? Or, you know, or contract or whatever? Because
So
there's a
Nancy-
big difference for me. I have to know which way we're
I
gonna go.
can give you an
Yeah,
answer to that.
so the QPA resigned. I asked her for recommendations of other QPAs. She strongly recommended a group called the Canning Group that created a business in being QPAs for municipalities. I believe we sent everything out to the Township Committee with a link to a proposal they provided, and essentially it's flat. So that for the same $6,000 a year, they're willing to provide the full turnkey service. And if you look at the resumes of the professionals, I think it's actually an upgrade. No offense to Nancy, but this is a firm that has
Yeah.
more people as opposed to a single individual. So unless, I mean, we'll do some diligence on it, but unless there's a major objection, I think we ought to give these folks a try and just roll it as a outsourced service to the Canning Group.
I mean, I printed it out, I looked at it, they certainly look qualified. I'm just trying to find, here, $6,000 a year
Yes.
was what they gave you.
And I have heard of the Canning Group.
Yeah, and what was interesting, what he did is he went online, when I left him a message to call me, he went online, looked at our budget and came up with that number. Now, I don't know whether he saw what we're paying our current QPA, but he said he came up with that based on what he saw our size of our budget and our spending in our town. And he's very comfortable to provide those services.
Okay, well, that makes it easy for me, because that's already in my
Yeah.
budget. I budgeted for the full six, we only spent 45, because we only had her for, so that makes my life easier, doing it that way.
Yeah, I think, I'd like to, again, we'll do some diligence, just check some references, talk to some other municipalities, just to be sure but I was very confident in my conversation with him and what I've seen so far.
Are we switching animal control?
So animal control, a couple of things I've learned on that is we have someone who was in here, I forget her name.
Carolyn Murphy.
Yeah, she made a presentation to us. She's since sent me a proposal. Did I forward that to you, Pam, the proposal she sent me?
I think she sent it to me and I
Oh,
sent
yeah,
it out.
yeah, right, she sent it to you. And so she's interested in becoming, what her perfect scenario would be we would hire her as an employee and then enter the shared services agreements out of our office with other municipalities. And I told her that's, everyone wants a shared service agreement when somebody else is sort of, running the service. I said to step up and create a service, there's a lot of unknowns. There's equipment, insurance, trucks, how do you cover for vacation, sickness? What do you do when you gotta be in two places simultaneously? What do you do if they quit,
Or what do you do when the other municipalities start crapping out on you?
Well, yeah.
And
So
you're paying her a salary unless you have an arrangement where her salary is tied to the shared services. The other municipalities terminate their agreement, and now you're stuck with paying their share as well.
So what I told her was, I said, my inclination is, I said, I'm all ears, I'm willing to think about it. I said, but my inclination would be to just do like we did with Nancy, kind of just hire her as an individual person if she can do the work, or if she becomes a shared service with another municipality that she's talking to, entering into that relationship with that firm. But I said, I don't know if we have the time right now because we couldn't do this for January. I think we can terminate our current agreement, right, based on
90 days notice.
90 days notice. So, but that's good for a year. So I think we have a year to really develop this further if we were going to go down that path. Although I think we were thinking, for some reason, we had 17 as the number in my mind for St. Hubert's, but based on what I read, it was lower than that. It was like 12 something.
St. Hubert's is, what, it's 14? maybe? It's,
I don't know if I brought that with me, I did have it.
it's mid 3,000 a quarter. And we were paying 1,900 a quarter with the previous,
Yeah.
so, and we were basically breaking even with that 1,900, and now when it's jumped up,
Yeah. I
we're
think
we're
we
in
should,
the hole.
I think we should do some looking though, because based on, I think, something Terry sent out, West is using the same St. Hubert's and paying half.
Well, isn't it based on population?
They're about the same, I believe, West and us are geographically and sort of per capita close, I believe. I believe we're pretty close, so I don't know why theirs would be a lot less, unless they have a limited service, maybe there's a menu of services and they've chosen not to do certain things. But I think we ought to explore it in 2019 and look for options, but at this point, I don't think we have the time to change between now and the new year.
I think you probably ought to take what we've had in 2018, maybe add a little bit to it and make that 2019.
Well, see, we actually, that's the thing, we don't budget for animal control in our operating budget. In my other municipality, we put aside $10,000 every year, and we push it in there. We don't budget for it in East because you've been pretty much self-sufficient. What you bring in, we pay out, but because of that big jump. Now, I mean, the other things, we would refund part of St. Pam's salary, because she would tell me, I put in 20 hours this month towards the dog licenses, because January and February are very busy. So I would take her salary and take that out of the animal control and refund her line item. We cannot, we could not do that. That's one way to, not use them. Of course, then that affects the operating
Right.
budget, but
Well, I think, I would like to see both. I'd like to see the revenue side, and then I'd like to see the expenses of animal control separately delineated, so we could see how, just like we're doing with summer playground, I believe, right? We do the same thing, we have the summer playground
yeah.
expenses, and then we know what the revenue is.
Yeah, I
Against
mean,
it?
I can write you something up for
Yeah.
that. Because I think I did do something about what we were bringing in and what we were expending, but it was just lump sums,
Okay.
And I showed that every year, maybe we were $500 in the hole, but it wasn't a big deal because we had $9,000 in the account. And then last year, we were like $6,000 expended more than we had in the past, and that really dropped the account.
We're going to have to break at 7:10 to go in executive session, so we have about 8 minutes. Is there a high-level things that you want to hit before we break? I mean, we could do
To tell you
another
the
one of
truth-
these later in the month at our meeting or before our meeting.
To tell
but-
you the truth, you gave me a good start.
Okay.
So I'm good. The only other question I was gonna ask you was kind of off the topic of off the top budget, was this whole stormwater, doing the purchasing of those plants, is that still going on? Because I kind of saw all the emails flurrying and then I haven't
believe-
seen anything.
I believe where we left it
So
was.
if we're gonna do it, I gotta get it done.
Yeah, I believe where we left it was if we had a sufficient statement in writing from the state saying that we could pre-purchase, and that if Princeton Hydro guaranteed to provide the labor at no charge, without relying on volunteers, that we would move forward with the purchase. And I think they gave us the delineation of all the items they wanted.
To me, it sounded like that we were going forward
Yeah.
with it, but I have to get it encumbered and they have to get it purchased before January
Yeah.
14th.
Yeah, let's, under those, and I think that's where we left it in the written dialogue. So, yeah.
I haven't heard anything since then, so I didn't know if
No,
it got dropped or if it
I'm
was still
assuming we're
moving
going
forward.
forward. Yeah, my
Okay.
assumption is we
I've
were
been
moving forward.
following those emails. I think we received adequate written confirmation from Princeton Hydro. We just need the letter from the state, and then we're doing it. And they may already have that, I don't know.
Okay. All right, then
So-
we've covered what I
okay.
needed to cover for this time. I would just like to meet again before, when we have our January 10th meeting, if we can get here early again,
Okay.
and I
Sure.
can
Yeah.
put together something.
So what I would ask is the members of the committee to take this document and look at it. If you have any individual questions or suggestions, send them to Margaret. Okay?
But copy the mayor, I would assume,
Yeah.
on anything, so
Yeah,
you know
please.
everything that's going on.
Okay. Anything
Thank
else?
you, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
We were gonna have it open to the public. Since there's no public, we're gonna have it open to the public and close to the public.
Okay.
Right? Unless,
Kathy has nothing to say,
sorry.
I can guarantee you.
Okay, why don't we just take a couple of minutes here to set up our teleconference. So at this point, we're
Do we
going
need a
to,
motion to close, or no?
Well, we have to
Well,
go
we-
into executive
we're
session.
going into executive
Okay.
session. I think we have a consensus to go into executive session.
Right.
So we're going to be going into an executive session, and then when we come out of that, we'll, if there is time, we'll have it open to the public. If not, we'll move into our regular meeting.
Okay. Kath, could you close the door? Thank you.
Am I allowed to be here?
Yes. Yeah.
Deputy Clerk Pamela Dimmick announced that this is a regularly scheduled meeting pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 2nd, 2018. A copy of the agenda, with the meeting notice published in Hunterdon County Democrat, issue of January 11th, 2018. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Times of Trenton, Star Ledger, Courier News, posted on the bulletin board, and filed in the clerk's office on December 11th, 2018.
Thank you all for coming. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pam, are there any
No,
changes to
no.
the agenda? Okay. Before we get started, first I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I'd like to also introduce Chris Sobieski, who's been invited to the dais, as has been the custom for many years in East Amwell, to invite the elected official up to participate. He'll have the ability to discuss and be part of the discussion, but cannot participate in any votes.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the announcements. There's a recycling container in the municipal lobby for plastics, collection for Trex. A local church is trying to collect 500 pounds of specific plastics to acquire a bench for a property in the township. Visit the township committee or the township website for further information. Clausen House, operating as the East Amwell Museum, is now open for general public with hours Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. Free radon kits are available to residents at the Hunterdon County Health Department at County Complex Building 1 from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. daily. There's a phone number on the agenda to call. The new East Amwell website is up and running. If anyone has any comments, good or bad, please direct them to Alliston Castellano. There will be a second Township Committee meeting this month to be held Thursday, December 27th at 7:30 p.m. And municipal offices will be closed on the following dates: December 24th, 25th, 31st, and January 1st. The Township Committee will have its reorganization meeting on Wednesday, January 2nd at 7:30 p.m. So at this point, we're on item 5, an update from our CFO.
All right. First thing I have is that I want to set up a trust fund for the Clausen House, because I know it's been mentioned that we may be getting donations or gifts in to help maintain our expenses for the Clausen House. To do that, we have to pass the dedication by rider, so I can set up a trust fund. Any money that comes into it will be specifically earmarked for Clausen House projects.
We're looking to raise money at Clausen House. One alternative is to sell naming rights to the rooms in Clausen House, and there's been some interest in that. We're doing other things to raise money at Clausen House, and it seemed to be sensible that the money we raise at Clausen House, we would put into a dedicated account to fund the expenses of Clausen House. For example, if we were successful in selling the naming rights to all the rooms, we could probably fund the expenses at Clausen House for years to come. Margaret told me that procedurally to do that, we need to set up this separate trust fund dedicated to Clausen House, and that's what this resolution is intended to do.
And once this is passed, it has to be approved by the state before we can go forward.
So you all have the resolution in front of you. Do you have a motion on this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve the Clausen House Historic Trust Fund resolution.
A second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next thing up is I have some budget transfers. You have the resolution in front of you. Hopefully this will get us through the end of the year and a little bit beyond.
The only question I have, Margaret, is the large amount of money in health insurance. Can you explain?
Okay, the reason for health insurance, we do have a large amount of money in there. Basically, that's to cover my health insurance. I don't take it, but you need to have it available, that if I ever do need to have it, you want to be able, and family coverage is $31,000. So
Okay.
that's why we have.
Okay.
Okay.
Any comments? Okay, I have a motion on this resolution?
I'll move the motion to do the budget transfer.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I guess last month I brought up the new incentive programs that the state is bringing out for health insurance. If a township wants to offer that to their employees, they need to actually pass a resolution to do so. I gave you that information last time, just to look at if you want to pass it.
Yeah, I think, based on a question I raised, I think that's going to require some discussion. It appears the municipality is responsible to pay the incentives,
Yes, that's the way, I mean,
And
when I
adminis-
read it over, that's what it looked like to me.
yeah, and administer those incentives. So
Yes.
I think we need a little more deeper dive on understanding the budget implications of that. Do you think there are many employees who would take advantage of that if we did
I'm
it?
not even sure any employee would take advantage of it.
Okay. And that's something we can take time on then to do a deeper evaluation of?
For the plan year 2019, no, we'd have to have it done, ready, because open enrollment's now.
Okay.
If you want to put it off, and I don't know if, if we can pick it up again for 2020.
Let's do this. I need to dig into that. So let's leave that as something we can address at our meeting on the 27th. If it turns out it's something we want to take on. But I think based on what I read, there's some financial complications that weren't obvious in the first view of it. So,
Okay. And I believe the other two things that I had were moved to other areas in the agenda, so they're not under me anymore. I think that's pretty much it. Other than, I'd like to schedule the next budget meeting for January 10th, as early as everybody's available.
Right, I think we were thinking an hour prior to the regular meeting.
Yeah.
So those members, put that on your calendar
Yeah.
for January, is it January 10th? Is the-
Yes.
January 10th at 6:30.
6:30? Got it.
Okay, any questions for the CFO? Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, special discussion. We were going to have a discussion about the East Amwell Township School being awarded a blue ribbon designation, but due to illness, the administrative folks there can't make it, so we're going to defer that until January. Item 7, standing committee reports. A member of the Environmental Commission, Patsy Wang Iverson, brought to my attention the opportunity for the municipality to get free seedlings and make them available to the residents. So I worked with her to make that happen. So she did the heavy lifting, wrote a letter, educated me on the process, and we have, I believe, a resolution. Oh, no, it wasn't a resolution. No, we didn't need a resolution. It was just a letter. Right, so there's a letter in your package that was sent from me. The basic concept is sometime in this early spring, we'll get free saplings. They need to be unbundled and repackaged and delivered to members of the community through our Environmental Commission. And Patsy identified several events, such as the Color Run and some other events that we could do where we could distribute those at the recycling depot, for instance, and other things. So the Environmental Commission will take the lead on making that happen. But at this point, we met the deadline, which was the 14th of Friday, and hopefully we'll get the seedlings. So if anyone wants trees, they'll be available sometime in April. Any comments or questions on that? Okay, let's take on the minutes now. We have the approval of the September 13th, 2018 regular minutes. Do I have a motion for their approval?
I can move the approval of the September regular minutes.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? I know, Rick, I think you provided some edits.
Just on the verbatim pieces, there were some words that weren't verbatim, and comments from the audience during non-open periods should not be reflected in the minutes. If people shout out something, that shouldn't be reflected. We shouldn't even be encouraging that sort of behavior, so any place that appeared in the minutes, I deleted it.
Okay. One comment or one change, it's really not a change, but just something that I think, there's a table that's reflected under the Resolution 2318, the benefits schedule, and as it printed, the numbers don't align with the topics. So if you look at, for instance, years 11 through 15, on one column it's 54321, and then the next column, the 5 is pushed down a line. So you can see that,
I think maybe because you printed on small, I'm not seeing it pushed down on,
oh,
I think on the 14-inch paper, it may not push it down.
okay, well, maybe it's a pagination
It
issue.
might be a
on my-
page thing.
Yeah, okay. So as long as it's correct in the formal minutes, then that's fine. It was just confusing to read. So, are there any other comments? Okay. Thought I had one thing, but. Oh. Did you get that?
I don't know.
Okay.
If not, we can. if it's
Yeah,
typed.
minor typo, I'll give to you later. Pam. Okay. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now the September 20th, 2018 special minutes on roads.
I'll make a motion to move the special minutes from September 20th.
Second.
Any comments or changes? I had one. There was a number that was 200,500. Is that accurate, Rick? It says if we borrowed 50,000 over 20 years, they'd be repaying 200,500.
Probably should be 250,000. But
Okay,
I don't know. I'd have to.
Yeah. So why don't we just say that as an example or something, and not use those as accurate?
I don't
Yeah,
remember anymore, Tim. It's been
Yeah, why don't we just strike
too
the,
long.
why don't we just strike if the township took 50,000 over 20 years, they would be repaying 200,500, but paying back 50,000 in 2 years meant less interest. Just strike that sentence since we're not sure it's correct. I don't think it,
What paragraph is it in?
Well,
Or do you want to
that's-
send me that correction?
yeah,
Okay.
I'll send that to you, yeah. And then lastly, there was a comment in the open to the public said drinking and hunting. I think that probably means drinking and driving. Pam, I'll just slide this down to you when I'm done here. And then there was another comment about Wirtsville and in Little York. I think that might be Old York.
Old York, yeah.
Okay, let me just give those to Pam, and she can take
Give it to Terry.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The October 11th regular minutes.
I'll move the October 11 regular minutes.
Second.
Okay, any comments? I just had one general, thank you for writing this, but the plural or the possessive form of my name is S apostrophe as opposed to apostrophe S. So if that correction,
What was that? I made
Matthews.
that correct.
Yeah.
I made
Yeah,
that.
so it's not
What
Matthews apostrophe S, because my name's Matthews, so it would be Matthews apostrophe. So that is prevalent throughout the minutes.
So it's Matthews apostrophe S. Okay.
No, Matthews
no S.
apostrophe.
No S.
Yes. Yeah. And it's one T. I have to tell someone else that. let me just, I think I highlighted one or two smaller things. Yeah, I need, I prefer doing this actually electronically and highlighting online, but. Okay, that was it. Well, there was just the one change then up front here.
What page is that on?
On the second page, under the update from the CFO, the last sentence in the first paragraph just says she doesn't see any drastic. Any drastic what? So I think we should just strike the sentence. So, since it doesn't.
No, we caught that.
Oh,
We
you caught
fixed
that?
it. That's
Okay.
fixed, you don't have to
Okay.
strike the sentence.
Okay, that's-
That's in my edits, we fixed it.
Okay, I read them before I got your edit, so. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. And then finally, the October 11th, 2018 executive minutes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to move the executive minutes from October 11th.
Second.
Okay. I don't think I have any, nope, I'm good. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, at this point, we are going to open to the public. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
I'll make a motion to open to the public.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're open to the public for comments, not on tonight's agenda. Yes, please come forward and state your name.
My name is Gloria Ann Roby. I reside on the Lambertville Hopewell Road. And I do have a comment, and I will give a copy to Pam Demick. David Wang Iverson has served on our township committee for 6 years. He is retiring at the end of this month when his second 3-year term concludes. David is respected for his demonstrated commitment to respectfully and impartially serve all the residents of this township. David's leadership has contributed to maintaining East Amwell's high quality of life, its preservation of farmland and open space, and low property taxes. David's honest and positive leadership on the Township Committee has encouraged many talented residents to volunteer to serve on township boards and commissions. His consistent efforts over the years to bring the South County branch of the library back to Ringo's was successful. David provided leadership and experience in constructively negotiating the acceptance of the township's affordable housing plan. As a resident, David volunteers with the Ringo's Grange, as well as stewardship and trail building in the township preserves. And so I say, thank you, David. You are an eminent resident of East Amwell, and thank you for the years of your commitment and your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Yes. Okay, I'm uncomfortable with you bringing anything up to the dais without us knowing what it is, so would you put it back in the room, please?
Back, okay.
Yeah, from a safety perspective, I appreciate that.
Yeah, unfortunately, my printer died, so my notes are on my computer. Give me 1 second. So my name is Joe Wolfgang. I live at 26 Zion Road. And so I wasn't here for the meeting that we had on the helipad. I watched it on video, and I thought you guys did a great job. I really thought the resourcefulness was impressive, and the just teamwork, brainstorming was pretty cool. It was good to see all the ideas that came up, that developed, and as much as we have a voice on the whole thing, it looks like we have a good plan. At the end of the meeting, I noticed, Tim, you came down here and spoke as a resident, and gave an impassioned talk against the golf course and how they treat the town. And I was following along, but then you made a comment about little bike races, 100, 200, that we have approved, the congestion they cause, the litter complaints as a result of little bicycle races. And I went to the video, those are your words. And what concerns me, if it was one time you said that, maybe it was one thing, but back in October, there was a guy that spoke about chip sealing of the roads and how it affected cyclists, and you made a comment suggesting then, it was October, that chipping roads might be a good idea to keep cyclists out of East Amwell. So putting those two together, it hits me personally. And I'll tell you why. I've been a cyclist for 35 years. I've been involved in many bicycling clubs and races, both as a racer and as a volunteer for helping support racing. I've been in the Princeton Freewheelers. I've been in the Central Jersey Bike Club, the Western Jersey Wheelmen, local clubs here. Cycling in the Sourlands is what led my wife and I to look for a house in East Amwell. We moved here in the 90s, and I know many cyclists that live in East Amwell. So I just want to look at your comments a little bit from that night, because they concern me. The only race I know of in East Amwell was out of the church at Amwell Road and Dutch Road around 7 years ago. And I participated in that as a volunteer, just providing safety for the riders and motorists. It was held early in the morning on a weekend with minimal intrusion on traffic. So you said there were hundreds and 200 bike races. So I did a pretty thorough Google search. And I saw there was a Rutgers race in 2012, another race that had Pat Krieger's name associated with the Township Committee approval. So Pat was on Township Committee maybe 5 years ago, I think. There was an informal race held in 2015, and there was something at a farmland cycling event in June of 2018, this year. So that's all I could find as far as bike races or events. Of course, there's the Sourlands Spectacular bike event, and that bike tour raises a lot of money to protect the Sourlands. So a lot of cyclists ride in the Sourlands, ride in East Amwell, and they're raising money to protect the mountain and that particular area of the town as a result of that bike event. There might be many organized club rides, many of which raise money for worthy causes such as diabetes research, cures for cancer, and fighting MS. So those are people that are out riding their bikes in the town, raising money to fight diseases, donating their time for a good cause. They're not bike races. They might be too bad. Somerset County had an 85-mile top-level bike road race on Memorial Day weekend for years, where the county was pleased to share their lovely roads with hundreds of racers. So many residents got a chance to experience world-class bike racing up close in their town with easy access. Kids got intimate exposure to a sport that could give them a healthy lifestyle for many years. So I think maybe there's some good things to be said about having bicycling in your town. You talked about the congestion. Cyclists are allowed to ride 2 abreast per the New Jersey state law. Cyclists are allowed to use the roads in every town in New Jersey, just like motor vehicles by law. People enjoying East Amwell on bikes are not people enjoying East Amwell in a car, adding to pollution and congestion, in a hot air balloon with noisy burners, which some people have complained about, or in a pack of motorcycles with no mufflers and blaring stereos. Most cyclists follow the 2 abreast law, but I know not all do, and I get stuck behind them just like anybody else, and it's not nice, but the law is 2 abreast, and I think more people are becoming aware of it. I think they do pose less of a problem than the motorists that are driving 45 miles an hour on 25-mile-an-hour roads in our town, for sure. The other thing you mentioned was trash. So I admit there are times, that was in the bag, by the way. I admit there are times when I'm eating a snack and a shred of the wrapper gets away from me. But cyclists cannot carry much on their person when they're riding, so it kind of limits what they can toss, if they do toss. So the best way to explore your claim about garbage is with facts. So in those bags, and I'm happy to put it out if you want to look, I went in front of my road, which is Zion Road, which my wife describes as a boardwalk for cyclists. We're in the southeast corner of the township, closer to the most populated area around here, which is Princeton, Montgomery. So we get a lot of cyclists from that area on our road. And I picked up all the garbage on my road, not on the entire road, maybe a 400 long strip of the road. And I'd be happy to set it out for you. But in that bag are numerous beer bottles, fast food wrappers, cups, cigarette packs, a dental floss holder, cigarette butts, etc. So that was on my stretch of the road. Then at the end of Zion, where it meets Lindbergh, which I know a lot of cyclists, when they're riding in the Sourlands, they'll stop there and regroup, and that's a good time to take your power bar or your banana and eat it, and maybe toss the wrapper. I collected the garbage there also. Pretty much the same thing. Popeye's fried chicken package. There was a Cumberland Farm, a Quick Check plastic sandwich box. A lot of beer bottles. Rolling Rock, Coors. I forgot the other ones. But an awful lot of beer bottles. So I did find I'd love to show you, at the end of Zion Road, I found one portion of a wrapper of like a Harvest bar, a Cliff Bar, like the size of maybe 2 fingers, that size dimension. That's what I found as far as cycling traceable garbage. So I really don't think that the problem is with cyclists, that there's a garbage problem in our town on the roads. So I thought your comments as a cyclist, that they denigrated cyclists as intruders, takers, and litterers, and it serves to promote an us against them attitude for motorists. And as someone who's been hit by a car twice on my bike, one time requiring hospitalization, I don't think we need anyone, especially the mayor, promoting antagonism against vulnerable cyclists, especially when the information being presented doesn't, to my mind, sound accurate. So I'd like you to correct your statements about that from the last that last meeting. And so I don't know how you feel about that, but
Thank you.
okay.
Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Helen Rainierson, Rosemont, Ringo's Road, Ringo's, New Jersey. Do we have a New Jersey law enforcement in Ringo's, New Jersey? That they're collecting money?
I don't know, if you'd share it with us, I'd be happy to look at that. Yeah, did it come from here? From,
No, I don't know where it came from, but it might be a scam. I don't even want to even keep it.
Ringo's Fund Drive for National Law Enforcement Officers. Yeah, this sounds like something you may not want to
Yeah, that's
participate
what I
in.
thought.
Yeah,
Probably a scam.
yeah, it's
It's probably.
just somebody trying to take your money.
Yeah, most likely.
Would you like it back?
No. And another
Can I take
thing,
a look at it?
I just happened to look out the window one day this past week, and I saw this car come up in the solar field just so fast that it disappeared. And then I just opened the door, and the police car went up the road. So apparently, they were being chased by the police, and they just turned in that solar field, and they just disappeared. I don't know where, I actually don't know where they went. I never saw the car after that. And the police went up the road. Apparently, they were being chased.
So the police followed them up the Solar Road?
No,
Oh.
they went right by it.
Oh, okay.
See, because they came and turned in there so fast and went up in there, they
Oh,
couldn't see them.
they hid. They evaded the police.
And did anybody go out and look at the solar field to see what they did with the trees that they planted and whatever they did?
I think we got an update from the engineer.
The engineer, Helen, went out and signed off on the replacement of the dead trees.
Okay.
He went out in early December, late November, early
Yeah,
December.
it was the end of the month when they put the rest of the trees in that
He
they
went
were
out.
supposed to put in.
And he went out and,
But then the company before that, they put a couple trees where there weren't any trees before, and they were supposed to replace the dead trees that were in there. So, but I don't know if you wanted to go and look at it to see what they've done or not.
I mean, I can go in and take a closer look and see.
Yeah, if we
The
get a chance.
engineer signed off on them doing what they were supposed to do in
Okay.
terms of replacing the dead trees.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment?
What?
I'm talking to the rest of the group. If
Oh.
anyone else has any comments. Motion to close? Anybody?
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to address Mr. Wolfgang's commentary. First of all, I think if you look in the context of my statements, I was making an analogy between a potential golf event and other events that occur. I have nothing against bicyclists. As a matter of fact, I like bicycling. I don't do it myself due to my back problems. I wish I could. I encourage it. I think you'll see on the record every bicycle group that's come in front of this township committee. For every year I've served here, I've supported. And voted affirmatively to allow them to do it. I've always raised caveats with them, which is obey the laws, be respectful, don't litter, because I do see it personally. Linvale Road, where I live, and Mountain Road are used a lot by the bicyclist groups and tours, and there is a lot of litter that I pick up. I agree, a lot of it is liquor bottles and other things, which I pick up also, but there are water bottles, vitamin water, and a lot of the power bar wrappers that are on the ground. Sometimes I even find the permanent bicycle water things that are attached to the bikes. I'm sure they don't want to lose that, but it probably falls off their bicycle. So there is some litter. I've always been an advocate of the bicycle races. I've told them to make sure that they have a cleanup plan after them, so we allow them to do it. So by no means do I in any way want to disparage them. I also anecdotally get a lot of feedback from residents who do run into the bicycle rudeness, and there is some of that, where the bicyclist won't move out of the way of a vehicle. So, I think we should all play nice on the roads, but I do not in any way not want bicycle groups to be riding on East Ambler's roads. I just want them to be good citizens like everyone else. So I hope that clarifies what you've heard me say. I don't know exactly what I said because I didn't rewatch it, but if it was misconstrued, I apologize if it was misconstrued. But I have nothing against the bikes, and I've always voted affirmatively for them. So.
Could I add one thing also?
Sure.
It doesn't have to do with cyclists, but there is a lot of litter on our roads. I think Mr. Wolfgang has a better class of people because the beer cans I'm finding are cans, not bottles, and they're the crappiest beer you could possibly get, but I find a very, very significant number of beer cans. And I clean usually once a month or more. I do Rynearson Road and part of 604, and within 2 days there are beer cans again. That kind of is what it is, and at some point I may put a camera out there and try to see who's tossing the beer cans. But the other thing that's disturbing is there's a huge amount of garbage flying out of the Raritan recycling truck. They drive up and down the road, and when they get some speed, what's sitting in the bay of that, whatever you call it, the container part, is blowing out onto the roads, like in significant amounts. So the company that is picking up our recyclables is leaving a fair amount of that on the roads. I don't know if there's a way to correct it, but I've seen this multiple times because they pick up at my house on Thursday. I usually work from my home office on Thursday, and I go out and look when I hear the truck coming up Rynearson Road. And it gets up ahead of steam because there's a long stretch before it has to stop, and stuff is just blowing out of the truck. So I don't know if anybody else has experienced that, but we may have to do something at some point because it's not a piece or two. I mean, sometimes it's styrofoam, it's paper, it's all kinds of stuff blowing out of that truck. And then it just goes into the fields. That has nothing to do with the cyclists, but Mr. Wolfgang's point about the litter triggered this in my head.
Well, I did notice the Raritan truck changed. It used to dump the can in the back. Now it dumps it in this thing in the front, and I guess that fills up, and then that dumps it in the back.
And the doors are open, and,
Yeah.
as it gathers momentum, I guess the airflow going through is sucking stuff out and onto the roads.
Well, I think,
It's not just the recycling, it's also the garbage trucks. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not home for that. I'm not home on the
They
Monday.
both have stuff that's flying out. I think they litter more than anything else.
I wouldn't doubt it. And we may need to
yeah, I'll reach out to Raritan.
look into
I know
that a
that
little bit.
I know we have other service providers, but I'll at least reach out to Raritan since they're my service provider, and at least ask for an explanation as to how that works on those trucks. Any other comments? Okay, we're at item 11, public hearings and introduction of ordinances.
You forgot consent agenda items,
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
number 10.
Yes, consent agenda items. We have a resolution for the Amwell Valley Fire Company for an event to be held on January 12th.
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now that takes us to number 11, public hearings. Ordinance 18-21, an ordinance amending section 92-100B, section 3, and 92-100B, section 6 of Code of the East Amwell Township governing the conditional use standards for major solar or photovoltaic energy facilities or structures. So this was an ordinance we introduced last month for basically a prohibition for these facilities on farmland. So we're in the public hearing now. I have a motion to open to the public?
Motion to open?
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry, Pam, do you need to go through the proof of publication first?
Yes, that's right here.
When was it published?
Um, November 15th, 2018, issue of the Hunterdon County Democrat.
Okay, great. I had a motion to open.
Yes.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now open to the public on comments for ordinance 18-21. Yes.
I have a couple of handouts.
Okay.
Who should I give them to?
Give them to Pam, and then we'll send them around.
I'm Candy Wiggum, 1116 Old York Road, and I'm chair of the Ag Advisory Committee. As this ordinance impacts farms and farmers, the Agriculture Advisory Committee discussed it at our last meeting on November 19th. Members Rob Garrett, Kit Crisfulli, and John Perennis and myself were in attendance, and Del Campo sent in written comments. The major question that arose is, why is the Township Committee proposing this ordinance? The in-force ordinance contains many provisions that impose constraints on solar farms and mitigates many of the concerns associated with solar farm development. The proposed ordinance references the loss of agricultural use of land as a rationale for limiting solar development on farms. But some studies find that solar farms actually improve soils by increasing soil moisture levels and biomass and create opportunities for grazing and other agricultural uses. And one of the handouts I gave you is a report on a study that was done at Oregon State, my alma mater, which says that it does improve pastures, improves the moisture level, the grass quality, and the biomass of it. The proposed solar farm ordinance represents the taking of a potentially important source of income from township farmers on unpreserved land. Before voting on the proposed ordinance, we request that the Township Committee conduct a public hearing of expert witnesses in order to demonstrate that clear and present dangers require the prohibition of solar development on unpreserved farms as outlined in the proposed ordinance. In addition to discussing this with members of the Ag Advisory Committee, we reached out to some East Amwell farmers for their input. Here are some of their comments. Why ban something that would be a better choice than pollution? And the other handout that I gave you was a summary of the recent report on global warming. Sustainability practices are at the heart of farming. It's hard enough trying to farm in one of the most expensive areas in the country. Why take away the rights of farmers who could use this as a means to survive? Farms should be appreciated for more than just their looks. Maybe people don't understand that farming is not easy. The economic adversities on top of the many frustrations and difficulties normal to farming is born out of love, not money. Farmers farm for the love of farming. We need support, not restrictions. Getting to agree to sustainable practices in neighborhoods where farms could provide additional energy resources from solar is one more choice neighborhoods could be making. I want solar farms. Other than looks, all other benefits are great. There could be a requirement that solar farmland be grazed in order to control vegetation, effectively keeping that land in agriculture. Also, grazing offsets the use of herbicides. And I know some people have been grazing sheep on solar farmland. When well done, solar fields can be both an energy source and a food fiber source by grazing. No net loss of agriculture.
Thank you. Will you leave your comments with the clerk, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Some things were on there.
That's, if you prefer sending in a clean copy later.
Yeah,
Okay.
can you?
Yeah, please do. We'd like to include that in the record. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, my name is Zach Meyer, and I'm here on behalf of a solar development company in Jersey City, New Jersey. I want to humbly and respectfully advocate for solar in East Amwell, including on farmland. Really kind of have the four following reasons for this. Number one, we want to cooperate with any requirements in terms of setback from public roads, and I understand that there's another solar facility that is more visible and has been seen as unsightly. We love to ensure that any facility we develop here doesn't have that problem. So we'd like to cooperate in terms of the siting of a facility. And I should note that this is in particular regarding community solar projects, which is a new program in New Jersey. We think it's a great program that offers a lot of benefits and is even better for public good than, say, a corporate facility. The number two would be...
Excuse me, can you explain what a community solar?
Yes,
program-
sure. So community solar is if you develop a solar array that provides electricity to, we call the customer of electricity an off-taker. So provides electricity to homes and businesses and whomever that is off-site from that facility. So, we'd like to offer discount. It would have guaranteed discounted electricity for the residents of East Amwell, even if it, isn't on that person's property. So the number one is the siting considerations and wanting to ensure that this is not an unsightly development and would have the appropriate setbacks from public site and roads. Number two is, as mentioned, the revenue to farmers, which would be significant and I think a boon to the township. Number three would be, as I mentioned, the guaranteed discount on electricity of about 10 to 15% to subscribers of these projects, and we would very much welcome residents of East Amwell to benefit from these projects. And then number four would be reduction of greenhouse gas and other air pollution for today and for future generations. That's my my full comment.
Right, thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
Francis Gavigan, 123 Wartsville Road, for giving resumes. I'm a past chair of the Ag Advisory Committee. I also sat through, as I think you did, David, too, all of the hearings and the plans and the promises that were made regarding not only the solar facility that Mrs. Reinierson and her family have been living with, but also the failed one that was across the street on this side of whatever. All the plans and all the promises and everything that was made was wonderful, and it was going to be like something out of a Winter Wonderland or Disney. And the realization, as Mrs. Reinierson probably can attest, is hell. There are plus and minuses of everything. I am in favor of solar. I would like to have solar. I would like to see solar put to where and put in place to generate the amount of energy that is non-polluting in the places where it is least disruptive to the environment, to the community, to the property values. And that is not farmland. The attractiveness of farmland, if you own it, you'll be getting some money from it. If you live across the street from it or next to it, you're losing money. and as a resident of East Amwell, to make up the loss of property values that Ms. Ranierson and Ms. McGee and others have experienced, as well as, the trauma, is not offset by the carbon footprint. I applaud the proactive approach taken by the committee, and especially Deputy Mayor Wolf, to anticipate this and to take action while there was time. From previous meetings and hearings and statements, it is clear that even the state of New Jersey for the last few years is moving away from that, and I believe in 2019 or 2020 there's a plan that'll be coming out that is supporting that. I recall a state senator up in northern Hunterdon and Warren, who for years has been introducing legislation that didn't pass to try to move things away from putting solar businesses, that's what they are, on farmland. This isn't the same thing as the people on Rileyville Road who have a small solar unit. That's different. This is industrial energy, and it is like any other business in America. It's done on the basis of lowest cost. And what happened with the property next to Ranierson, Mrs. Ranierson, is the people that came in, they made a compelling argument. They were very nice. People worked with them, and they immediately sort of went under, and then came in the industry from hell who put it in, ignored the plans. The county changed things. We weren't in the loop. 3 or 4 years now, is it, Mrs. Ranierson, that you've been going through this stuff, and now we find out that it's a nice place to hide from the cops because you can go down there, go around the edge, and then cut back through that. It's an attractive nuisance. When I moved here, 23, it's coming 24, I guess, next year, I had a house, a compliant lot, and I had a building lot. That's a significant amount of money. And they came in with the 10-acre zoning. Now, I could have been smarter and subdivided it, and then I'd have 2 non-conforming lots. It wouldn't have interfered with me as a farmer because you can do adjacent properties and things like that. But I thought the net benefit to the community to be in support of the 10-acre zoning and to preserve the rural nature and the scenic vistas that make the bicyclists want to come, the tourists want to come, and also people to live here was worth the financial and the personal hit that I might take. And I would think that the vast majority of the people in East Amwell that you've been elected, David, you for several years, and Chris, you're new, and you guys have various tenures, would support that. I understand the need and the desire to have an income stream, because if you want to make $100,000 with farming, you better start with $1.5 million, because you're not going to be making money. You're doing it for the love of it or the foolishness of it, depending on who it is. It is a tough business. I understand, but this ordinance is anticipating a direction that the state of New Jersey is finally coming around to having a ha-ha moment. You go through Somerset County and Mercer County, you'll see little solar units on every telephone pole. That would be a way that we could do things like that here to reduce the carbon footprint, to support the things. If the legislature would take a certain tax or subsidy from it and then direct it to those industries and people in need, whether it's the farmers or the schools or whatever, that is something that can be negotiated. But I would urge you all, and I would hope that the majority of people here and around the township or watching this in virtual TV land, would applaud the efforts that you are making and the steps that you're taking, and that when they go to find the cheap land to screw up, they'll go to another county or another road, and they will leave this historic area alone. We're the crossroads of the American Revolution. John Ringo and his tavern, Sons of Liberty. I don't think the Sons of Liberty or the founders of this nation were thinking, oh, let's have an industrial complex. So, thank you, and in the future, and the fact that if there is litigation or somebody challenges this, I realize my wallet will be impacted, and that's okay. So, thank you, go for it, and, we are a nation to where we have to consider the common good and not just the individual benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have a motion to close to the public.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we have an ordinance in front of us, ordinance 18-21. Do I have a motion for its adoption?
I'll move ordinance 1821.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a comment or two. I just want to be clear, I support the objective of this ordinance. I think that we need to find some way to prevent a reoccurrence of what happened on Route 604. But as I alluded to last meeting, I'm not convinced that this approach is the correct one. I'm concerned that, I guess what I would say is that whatever restrictions we wish to apply to solar fields going to the future should apply to everybody in town and not a subset of property owners. And I think there are a couple of ways to do that. One, as I suggested last time, would be to look at our current condition requirements and see if they can be strengthened. Increase the setbacks, make the visibility rules stronger, so that somebody like Mrs. McGee doesn't have to walk out of her front door and see the solar panels. I think if the setbacks were increased, the issues that Mrs. Rainierson faces would be mitigated, and there are probably other aspects of our current Chapter 92-100 that could be improved. So that would be one way. The other possible approach would be to remove the conditional use for major solar facilities entirely. Those sections were put on the books, on the code books in 2011 to deal with this particular application. My understanding, and I was not involved in any of those discussions, nor did I attend any of those meetings, but it's my understanding that those changes to the code book, which added conditional use for major solar facilities and the conditional specifications, were done as a mechanism to try to control this particular facility. And if you look at the drawings, if you look at the history of the drawings, you can see that the plans did change in reaction to adoption of those ordinances. But I don't think the ordinance that we have now is sufficiently strong to protect neighbors from these facilities. So I would argue that, again, as I said last time, I think this needs more discussion and consideration of other approaches to deal with this problem. But I agree it is an issue. I don't want to see what happened to Mrs. Rainierson and Mrs. McGee and her neighbors happen again, but I just don't think this is the right way to do it.
Any other comments? Take a roll call.
Mr. Wang Iverson,
No.
Mr. Ostrander,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, next is ordinance 18-22, an ordinance to amend Chapter 53, Animals of the Code of East Amwell Township to increase the dog license fee. This was introduced last month to address two rising costs. One was with our ACO, our Animal Control Officer service, and the other is some new requirements from the state for mailing and compliance that are driving up the costs. These fees were not raised for a long time, so we thought this was a reasonable increase. So as a dog owner, I'm going to feel it, but I understand we have to do it. So at this point, Pam, proof of publication?
True copy, that was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat on November 15, 2018.
Okay, do I have a motion to open to the public?
Motion to open to the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're now open to the public for comments regarding 18-22. Anyone? Motion to close?
I'll move to close.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 18-22?
I'll move to adopt.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion or comments? Okay, Pam, roll call.
Mr. Wayne Iverson?
Yes.
Mr. Ostrander?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes. Okay, and there are no new ordinances to introduce. Special committee reports, there are none. We're at item 13A, resolution to appoint UBI as risk manager for PACE Insurance. I think there's a resolution in our packet. Every year, we have to appoint a risk manager as part of our PACE insurance. Usually, they're appointed for the duration of the agreement. Last year, we chose to appoint them for 1 year. So at this point, we're going to reappoint PACE as our risk manager, or reappoint UBI as our risk manager as required. Do I have a motion to?
All moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, item B, update on the helipad application for the Ridge at Backbrook. See the strategic plan as prepared by Deputy Mayor Wolf and a letter from the completed application. Mr. Wolf, would you like to take it from here?
Well, I really asked to have this put on the agenda in case anybody wanted to have a discussion at tonight's meeting, but I've been circulating regular updates as to the progress that's been made. I'll circulate another update again this weekend. There have been some things that have happened during the week. We'll post the updates on the website, and if anybody has any questions, they are always welcome to give me a call.
There are some on the back table that you already sent,
Yes.
so I put some.
Yes, I've sent 3, I believe, to date, and I'll continue to send updates periodically as things unfold.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Wolf?
Oh, actually, there is one other thing. On a website today, it said the deadline, or a website piece that was sent to me today, it says that the due date for public comment is on or about December 21st. I have no idea where that date came from. So there may be some misinformation floating around on websites. You should pay attention to what appears on the East Amwell website and not any other websites. What is on the East Amwell website is the accurate information. I don't know where some of these other websites are getting their information.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thanks. Thanks for the update, Rick. Okay, items C and D, we're going to discuss in executive session. Also, item E, we're going to discuss in executive session along with item F. So we will discuss those in executive. So item 14, new business, the Municipal Alliance application. Does anyone know what that is? Pam, do you know what that is?
I have no idea. All I know is you have to sign it and need your signature.
So it's a document for signature?
If you want to see it, you have it.
Why don't we, just send it down to me and I'll sign at the end of the meeting.
Well, you can sign after.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to sign it. So I read through this, now I recall, so I read through this online, and I think we really need to understand more about this, but there's a cash match and an in-kind match required. So I think I'm going to take that and put that off for action until we really fully understand what the implications are from our budget on that item.
So for the next meeting?
Yeah, let's put that on the agenda for the meeting on the 27th. Okay, item B, a request for release of performance bond upon establishment of a maintenance bond for New Jersey Clean Energy Ventures, Block 3, Lot 1 and 2.02. See memo from Engineer Decker.
I look, you want me to?
Yeah, please.
I mean, I took a look at this. I've been corresponding with Terry. This is the solar field that was being discussed by Francis, the one on 604 next to Mrs. Reinerson's house. They posted a performance bond in conjunction with that solar field. And basically that bond was there in case they failed to do what they were supposed to do. The various professionals have now signed off basically saying that the solar company did what it was supposed to do. And so what happens is that performance bond is released and the solar company now posts a maintenance bond. And the maintenance bond is to do two things: to secure the solar company's obligation to maintain the solar field, and to secure their obligation to remove the solar panels and restore the farmland when the lease terminates in 20 or 25 years. So right now we're just being asked to authorize the release of the performance bond. Our approval is contingent upon Carl, our township attorney, reviewing the documentation and informing us that it's all in order. Based on what I've seen, I have no issue with that.
Okay. Any comments?
I just have a question. So the maintenance agreement is for 2 years, but they are obligated to replace the trees forever, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They agreed that as trees die during the course of the lease, they have to replace them. And the bond, I believe, continues through the life of the lease because we have a bond to protect us upon termination of the lease, that the solar panels won't just sit there and rot. For example, if the company goes bankrupt, there's money there to remove the solar panels.
But I thought it said the maintenance agreement was only 2 years for the maintenance.
There is a component that's 2 years, but they're obligated to post a bond to remove the solar panels upon the end of the lease term.
Okay, do I have a motion to move this resolution?
I'll move the resolution for the.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, so item C, the 1129 resignation of our municipal housing liaison and administrator, Agent Jim Robbins. He resigned. He's moving to North Carolina to deal with some family-related issues. I believe we've posted that position on the township website. So if anyone knows anyone who is qualified and would like to take on the role of a municipal housing liaison and agent, please let them apply. Okay, we have a resolution in front of us for clerk of office secretarial staff, Crystal Parsons. And this was to essentially...
Wasn't this the compensation?
Yeah, this was to compensate Ms. Parsons for
Doing work on
extra, essentially taking on an extra role in Terry's absence, helping out with some of the minutes preparation. So for those of you who don't know, we had a little backlog there. We're catching up on the minutes, and we thank Krista and Pam for doing that work. So anyway, the resolution essentially authorizes $20 per hour, which is Krista's current pay rate for all of her other tasks for these additional activities and hours. And it's in the budget. The money's in the budget, so. I have a
Move the
motion.
approval of this resolution.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, item E. We got a notice from our QPA, Qualified Purchasing Agent, Nancy Canto, that she chooses not to renew her contract in 2019. She had retired in September from Hopewell Township, and her original thought was this would be a nice kind of part-time thing to do, but she's enjoying retirement too much, and she wants to be fully retired and pursue her passion of pottery. So we wish her well. She did a great job for us, especially with a lot of the work that had to be done on the Clausen House in order to get those purchases done speedily. So we wish her well, and Nancy has recommended an alternative, which we're pursuing. The Township Committee has a proposal from a firm to take on this work at essentially the same cost, so there would be no additional cost to the township to take on a firm to do this work. So I think the advantage is it's a little bit bigger than one individual, so there's more coverage and more accessibility to knowledge in that firm. So we're seriously considering that, and we'll review it and take action as appropriate. Okay. Item 15, we're now, do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now open to the public for any items that are on your mind. Yes?
Still slow, still old, still Francis. I appreciate the resolution you just passed for Krista, for all the extra work that she's done. And while I realize it's part of her job, I would think that something should be considered for Pam, who has been a little bit like a mouse in a blender, doing all of the things of trying to be Terry. It's above and beyond the normal things, and I really think that at minimum some appreciation for what she's done, and I've been in and out of here to see it, but I think also some kind of nothing says thank you like a little green that folds and goes in your pocket. And I think that the vast majority of people who have seen things that are going on around here would think a little bit of Christmas cheer that way could go a long way towards municipal morale and all of that sort of stuff. If none of that's happening, thank you, Pam. Go with God, whatever. Don't go anywhere, and Terry's not allowed, and by God, I'm sure there's a party that's going to be held when Terry comes back. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Hello. Lisa Davis, 32 Stony Brook Road. I'm just here just about the helipad update. The last time that I spoke with any of you was at the last Township Committee meeting about this, and at the time I had said I would see what we could do on the Environmental Commission to contribute to the Township Committee's response. And we have been discussing this. We had our meeting on November 26th. Leo Mastropolo from the Watershed Institute attended the meeting. We discussed the issue at great length. I've been reaching out to some of the same organizations that Mr. Wolf, you've been reaching out to. Dee Kellogg has been doing a pretty exhaustive reading of the application as it has become complete, and has articulated a number of concerns about the application. The reason I wanted to speak with you tonight is that I'm not sure, my sense, and as you know, as you point out in the update, the most recent update, there's been a lot of confusion over what the period of public comment and then also the period of time remaining to the Township Committee to make a comment. a lot of discussion has been going on that it's been a little hard to kind of pin down what exactly should, the Environmental Commission be doing. So I just want to ask you, what do you think would be useful for the Environmental Commission to contribute to the Township Committee's comments? We had discussed at our last meeting that we would like to actually draft a statement about the potential environmental impact of the proposed helistop, and we were waiting at that time for the complete application to come in so that we could judge things like how much impervious cover might be involved in the helistop itself, and various other issues. We just didn't have complete information about it at that time. We haven't had a meeting since then, and we won't have another one before the 60-day period comes to a close for the Township Committee's comments. But that doesn't mean we can't draft this statement. But I don't want to do that if it's just a duplication of efforts that you're already making. I just want to know what you think. I mean, I understand that there's been a great deal of sort of reaching out to figure out impact on wildlife and particularly the watershed in that area. So if these are things that you're already taking care of in your own comments, then I actually think it might be more harmful than helpful for the Environmental Commission to also draft a statement. So I just want to know, I mean, I don't represent the Environmental Commission in any, official capacity here. I'm just, a member of the public. But since I've been involved in a lot of this communication, I think it would be really helpful for us to know what would be really helpful to you all as you're putting together the Township Committee's official comments. Is there a role that you want us to play, and what is that role?
This helistop issue is very much like an inverted triangle. You start up here, there are lots of potential issues. And what you try to do over time is narrow those issues and find out what your strongest arguments are, and that's where we are right now. We're having conversations with recognized experts. So we are focusing on the three-pronged analysis that I laid out in my updates. We are also focusing on other avenues, which I discussed at last night's planning board meeting. Is the Ridge violating any of the agreements that it made with the township as part of getting the approval for the golf course? There are other avenues that are being explored, some of which are probably best not consumed in the public. Various people know people at various levels in the state and are reaching out. I don't know at this point if there's a role for the Environmental Commission or not. As we get further down the inverted triangle and the arguments that we plan on focusing on become clearer, I'll be better able to answer that. Right now, in terms of issues that I would call environmentally related, we're really having discussions with recognized experts and taking their temperature as to what they think they could provide. So we'll see how that goes. I agree with you in what you've said, that we ought to speak with one voice. There's an old proverb that a ship with two captains sinks. There's a lot of truth to that. But to the extent we need assistance from the Environmental Commission, we'll reach out, and we'll have a better sense of that hopefully soon. We don't have the luxury of a lot of time. I've told the people who are working on this that they really need to report back by the end of December, because we have to submit our comments by January 24th. And it'll take time to draft those comments. The engineer at the DOT told me that the comments provided by the governing body, which is the Township Committee, carry the most weight by far when the engineers are reviewing the comments. So we want some time to get our comments drafted. But to the extent that we need assistance, we'll definitely reach out.
Okay. Right. That answers. I'm asking because we have been reaching out to exactly the same people you've been reaching out to, and it just seems like they need to know also whom to direct their comments. There's a lot of discussion going on. So if the answer is that all of the information should be pointed in your direction, then that's what we'll do.
That's what I think has been happening. I mean, I've been getting emails on a regular basis, some days 5, 6, 8, other days 1 or 2, some days none, but the volume over the course of a week can be pretty significant. I've been digesting that, trying to figure out what our strongest arguments are. I have a much better sense now than I did a few weeks ago of where I think we may wind up focusing most of our attention, but I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple people to see whether there may be other avenues. I don't want to get into too much detail because I want to wait until I have something more concrete, which hopefully will be soon. I mean, we're getting close to the middle of December, so, and with the holidays, people will be going off in various places. So, but for what it's worth, this is my number one priority. As Kathy will tell you, I'm spending vast amounts of time on this during the week, pretty much all weekend, going through email comments, reviewing documents, sending out updates. I call this Project Rocky, but Rocky 1, just to be clear, because it is an uphill battle, but I think it's a battle that can be won if we fight it the right way. For what it's worth, I got a phone call today from Bryce Thompson's wife, Grace, whom I've never spoken to before. I've spoken to Bryce back in 2010 a number of times when I was looking to buy a farm here in East Amwell. Never spoke to Grace. She told me it is okay for me to publicly disclose that we've spoken, and that to let the people of East Amwell know that she and the Thompson organization are very, very strongly against this Helistop. She is livid. This is not the deal they feel they cut with Joel when they sold him the land for the golf course. She is fully supportive of our efforts here, is going to help me find some experts, Olympic quality experts on equestrian, riding horses, and the impact that helicopters flying over can have. People who would be very recognized. I told her in my capacity as a resident, I may be funding some of the things that we're looking to do personally, and she said she would be more than happy to contribute. So she is 100% behind the efforts here, and I think that's a very good resource for us to have behind these efforts, and I will point that out in the update I send out, but that's a little preview. We have a lot of smart people in this town, really, really smart people, and fortunately I'm getting to know a lot of them as part of this process, and getting some really, really good ideas. So we'll see what happens. But thank you. Thank you for the offer.
Yeah, please do reach out, especially to, just reach out to me, I guess, if there's anything that we can contribute. As I said, we have been in discussion with people from the Watershed Institute and Raritan Headwaters and Sourland Conservancy. I'm sure you're talking to the same people. But if there's any way that we can contribute, we're ready to do it. We have been collecting the information too, so let us know.
Look, there's been some discussion about an online petition, and there's one now out there. That's not ideally what I would be doing right now. I've said to people that I really want to encourage those who care to write letters. Letters to me have a lot more impact than just putting your name on an online petition. That's not to say that I'm adverse to an online petition, but I'd really like to work on getting people to write letters maybe through the end of December, then go to the online petition. But I think the letters will have a greater impact. Not at NJDOT. The engineers made it clear to me twice they really don't care what the public has to say. It's not quite clear to me how much they're going to really care what East Amwell has to say. Because when I spoke with him last week, he said to me, the decision is made by 3 engineers, he and 2 others. And he said to me, we're going to meet soon to discuss approving this application. And I said, wait, you don't have our letter. And there was this long pause. And then this, yeah, you're right, we'll wait till you get your letter. In his mind, this is a done deal. I'm not writing this letter, and I'm not asking people to write letters because I necessarily believe that it's going to change the course at the NJDOT. But the letters can go elsewhere. And if the Ridge moves forward, continues to move forward with this application, I have some other thoughts that I'll share with people, but in my capacity as a resident, where I think these letters can be remarkably useful and have a significant impact. And I actually had this discussion with Grace Thompson today, who strikes me as really smart. And she agreed. So there's more to come here. And while I'm not convinced that what we're doing is going to impact the NJDOT, I think there are other avenues to be pursued. But get people to write letters. The more letters we get, the better. It's going to have much greater impact than signing a petition. We'll go to the petition at some point, but I want the letters right now. So to the extent you can encourage people to write letters, and I mean substantive letters, and people have been sending me copies of their letters, drafts of their letters, and there's some really good letters going out, some very good letters going out. Some of them are technically very good, and some of them are emotionally very good. I'd like to keep that momentum going.
Rick, have we provided the addresses of places to send the letters?
We have, but there's more to come, and I actually think there are other avenues that will have a greater impact, but there's a strategy here, and I don't want, we will have other avenues. If this continues, this process continues, we're going to I'm, at least in my capacity as a resident, I'm going to recommend letters go elsewhere.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yes.
Noting the advertisement on the website.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Certainly. Gloria Ann Roby, 144 Lambertville, Hopewell Road. Noting the advertisement on the website requesting resumes for the township attorney position. Township Attorney Taylor should be commended for resigning his position and removing himself from the abusive and corrupting atmosphere in this year's Township Committee meetings. Thank you.
I have not resigned.
Oh, you have not?
No. News to me.
Why are they advertising? You're advertising for a township attorney, are you not?
We are advertising, we are putting out RFQs for a number of township positions, including township attorney. Mr. Taylor has not resigned. None of our other professionals that we're advertising for, as far as I know, have resigned.
Any other comments? Yes.
A quickie, can I bully without tripping over the camera? Carl, like you did a good job. Stick around, put in a competitive bid, save us all money, and we'll see how it goes in 2019. Thank you.
Competitive bid or donation?
I will give that the attention it deserves, which is silence.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I have a motion to close.
Motion to close?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to be taking a fairly long executive session, just as a fair warning. If you want to come back, you're welcome, but we have at least 4 items to wrestle with. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, we're now out of executive session. Okay. I don't know if the live streaming is back on, but
I don't know that we have much more to discuss
No, we
other
don't.
than to approve the 2 resolutions.
okay, so I have in front of me a resolution to provide the mayor the authority to approve a settlement agreement between the Ridge at Backbrook and East Amwell Township on a tax appeal case.
I'll move such resolution.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. And secondly, I have a resolution to award, or to allow Pam Dimick to carry over 4 of her unused 2018 vacation days for 6 months to be used by June 30th of 2019.
On the resolution.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That takes us to the administrative reports, the treasurer report, bills of the evening. Any comments?
I'll move the bills.
Second.
Okay. I did have one comment, just further, Rick, to the heater for safe. I noticed both for that transaction and a transaction here, there was a line item from the heating company saying it was like an emergency call, like a no heat call.
There was no heat.
Right, but for here, there was one for the township.
Yes, we
also.
had no
You had
heat.
no heat here
We
either?
had no heat here also?
Oh my God, it was freezing.
Okay. Okay, I just saw
They
two
had
of them
to
and I
order
thought,
some kind of part for here.
okay.
And we kept telling Jason it's freezing. He kept telling us it's in our head. But then finally, it was like there was no heat.
Okay. Okay, great. Are there any tax collector? There's an October, November disbursements
Yes,
reports.
that's it. No
Yeah.
resolutions.
Okay. Municipal clerk report, everyone see that? I would like some feedback on the superintendent's new reporting method. I don't know if any of you have seen it, the new spreadsheet he puts together a month, which lists all the road workers, their hours and what they're working on. I think it's much more informative. It responds to a lot of resident questions about, what does the road crew do all day? And it eliminates that question of where there's one line item where, we cut the grass. Well, did 5 guys cut grass? Did 2 guys cut? So it really provides that substantial amount of detail. So I would like feedback on that to see if there's any more improvements we need to make to it.
Okay.
We had the state police report. There was something on that report that caught my interest. There were some parking complaints in town. And I got a call from the new owners of the library that that they put up signs.
You got that call too?
Yeah,
They're not happy.
they're not happy.
In 2003, the then Township Committee authorized the construction of bike lanes in Ringgo's. The problem was when you construct bike lanes, which the DOT finally got around to doing recently, you can't park. So I was chatting with a fellow from the NJDOT and he goes, yeah, towns do this all the time. They authorize bike lanes and they wipe out all their parking. So I had a conversation with a fellow from NJDOT. Last name was Midget, I forget his first name. But in any event, I said to him, look, we don't want to wipe out all of our parking. We have a site triangle issue at the
Yeah,
new library, that building.
that's right.
Can you just stick the signs there to protect the site triangle? And let's not worry about the rest of this. From what the folks that own the building are telling me, they're sticking up signs across the street and maybe up the street. So I have to reach out to the NJDOT and find out what's going on here. But this has a potential to be a real problem because technically those bike lanes wiped out all of our parking. And the folks that own that building want to knock down a house and put in a parking lot, and that may not be the worst thing in the world actually, but that's a bit of a process and that's not going to happen. Plus they have a tenant in there that still has 1.5 years on the tenant's lease. And you can always try to buy out the tenant, but the tenant knows they have leverage, and then it gets kind of ridiculous. So I had a long conversation with both of them today, the father and the son,
They called me too.
and they're not happy. And I told them we would work with them, but the first step here is to call NJDOT, and the DOT, this Midget fellow, and have another conversation with him. We may also have to talk to the state police and say, guys, look, don't be writing tickets in the bike lane except people who are in the site triangle by that building. Whether that conversation will go anywhere or not, I don't know.
Well, the irony here is the real area of concern is the parking spots that the tow truck company puts the cars in on the road. And all the complaints we get about those vehicles that are just kind of, they're not abandoned, but they're temporarily.
No, they're disabled.
Yeah, they're temporarily disabled along the sides of the road. And those don't have bike lanes. So that parking can continue.
It's a bit of a mess here. I didn't know about this bike lane thing until they went in. And when the bike lanes went in, I just happened to call NJDOT about the site triangle issue. Because I got a complaint from 2 or 3 residents that when they were pulling out of there, they couldn't see oncoming traffic. Because if a van parks right up to the driveway, you can't see. So I called NJDOT, and that's when they informed me about the whole bike lane issue. And that's when I kind of had an oh shit moment. We potentially have a problem here. I thought I had a handshake deal where they were just going to put these signs by his building to take care of the site triangles, but maybe that never got communicated to the people who are putting up the signs. But they are not
You
happy.
mean bike lane signs? What
Park
kind of
here and
sign?
you get fined signs.
No parking?
Yeah, you get fined. I mean, I don't know exactly what they're going to say, but it's going to give the state police the ability to write tickets. Because technically you're not supposed to park in those.
Yeah. But see, that was never marked as a bike lane until they
No.
repaved the road.
I know.
So,
And since 2003, it was never marked, and then recently when they did the repaving, I guess somebody said, okay, now's the time to put in the bike lanes, and it was just when I reached out on the site triangle that I find out what that really meant.
yeah.
And I have to tell you, I've talked to a few people at NJDOT on parking issues, and they're actually good at getting back to me, surprisingly good. And so we'll see, but
Okay.
Good.
there's always something.
Okay, we have the West Amwell construction report. The only thing I'm going to say is I'm going to go back again and request that they show the revenue associated with it. Their reports list the numbers of transactions, but not the fees they're taking in. And I think for full transparency and disclosure, we should be able to see that.
Look. There's some tension between East and West over all of this. There'll be a rollover at some point, in January. Let's maybe hang on a month and then see how things shake out and let things calm down a little bit before we start pressing these guys for information.
Okay. I can wait a month.
I would wait a month.
Yeah. Okay, and then correspondence. Anybody have any questions on correspondence? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming.